Alleluia. Om Mani Padme. Om. Allah.
Welcome. You're watching Harmony and Diversity. We're speaking with David Schutz. He's the Executive Officer of the Ecumenical Interfaith Commission for the Catholic Archdiocese of Melbourne. And we spoke with you last week, David, and I think I sort of rather awkwardly ended it by saying this walking thing that you're on about. I think it's some sort of a pilgrimage.
It is some sort of a pilgrimage.
Tell us about it.
Okay, I need to talk to hark back to a guest you've had on several times in the past, Luke Mills, who was the founder of a walk called the Aussie Camino from Portland to Penola in honour of Mary MacKillop.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I did that walk in the initial group that he took. So the first time he did it in 2014, and several times after that. And while doing that pilgrimage, which was only 7 days long, I thought there must be something more. And people were talking about the Camino in Spain, which is why Luke called his walk the Aussie Camino. The Camino in Spain goes to the shrine of Saint James the Apostle, whose relics are there in Santiago de Compostela. And I thought, what do we have that's similar here in Australia? Well, since we were walking on a pilgrimage with Mary MacKillop, I thought, we live in the city where she was born. Her grave, her tomb and her shrine is in Sydney. And it struck me, we could walk from her birthplace to her tomb and make that a true Australian pilgrimage in the honour of our national saint, St Mary MacKillop.
That's a fascinating, and it is, as you say, the only Australian sort of opportunity.
At the moment, it is our only Australian saint. There are a couple of other saints in the making, hopefully. So Mary Glowry, a Victorian woman, will be one that will be in the future, but that's another topic.
So, a pilgrimage, what happens?
Okay.
How
you walk.
You walk. Oh, okay. That's why I've been on one.
There are other ways of doing a pilgrimage. You can do pilgrimages by bike or you can drive if you want. You can drive to Penola and that's a pilgrimage. Or you can ride a horse was a traditional way of doing something.
Right.
But in our case, it's walking.
Right.
Walking from here to Sydney is a long way, somewhere between 1,200 and 1,300 kilometres.
Yeah.
We've decided to take the coastal route. We're not actually following in any footsteps of Mary herself, although at times our path crosses places where she has been. For instance, after Easter, we arrived in Eden on New South Wales East Coast after 690 kilometres and 25 days of walking.
But who's counting?
But who's counting? you do count. This is another thing you do when you go walking. You count every step. And the interesting thing about Eden is that it was the location where Mary MacKillop's mother died in a shipwreck off the coast of Eden. And a couple of weeks later, her body washed ashore, the only body to be salvaged from that shipwreck.
Good heavens.
The local people cared for her, for that body, and then Mary MacKillop came to Eden to collect her mother there and established one of her schools there as well.
Okay.
So it was a very fitting place for our halfway mark.
Absolutely.
Our plan has been to walk a couple of weeks every year after Easter. So starting on Easter Monday, in 2016, we left Fitzroy, Brunswick Street, where Mary was born, and we walked to Bairnsdale over 2 weeks. We actually then returned to the walk again last October, walking along a very good but very underused rail trail from Bairnsdale through to Orbost.
Oh,
beautiful
okay. Yes,
countryside,
yes.
and very easy walking because you're not on the road at all. Last Easter, we went back to Orbost and then walked, instead of following the Prince's Highway around to Eden, we went over the mountain up to Bombala, up on the Monaro Plains, and then back down through the Toowoomba Valley to Eden. So that was another 10 days walking there.
Right, right.
All the way along the way, we've been staying with and meeting with members of the local community. And that in itself has been a very important part of the experience.
Yeah. And has the, well, in your case, the Catholic Church, has there been a response to this?
Yes. So the group that's doing it, people often ask me, well, when we're meeting and talking to people in cafes, they say, so are you doing this for a religious reason? There's 3 of us who are part of the group. Sean, who helped do a lot of the mapping, would describe himself as a cultural Catholic. He was raised Catholic. He doesn't particularly practice his faith anymore, but he's found pilgrimage as a way of reconnecting with Catholicism I think, in quite an authentic way, or whether he recognises that or not. Joshua, a friend of mine, is very serious about pilgrimage and about the practice of his faith. He will be the one who will be praying the rosary along the way, saying his divine office as he's going. I'm more likely to put in my earphones and listen to music. Sometimes it's hymns, sometimes it's just background music. I even have my daily prayers recorded so I don't have to be reading out of a book or distracted. I can just walk as I'm listening. Yes. So it is a spiritual event. My wife sometimes says when I write it up on my blog at the end of the night, you're not writing about what's going on in your heart. And I'm saying, well, it's a very physical event, and your mind and your heart and your soul is involved in the soles of your feet. The souls that really count. There's an engagement in the present moment, which is really quite intense.
Yes, to use a much overused term at the moment is mindfulness. That would be part of the process, wouldn't it?
It would be. I'm not a very good person at mindfulness. In fact, I don't practice it very well. But certainly when you walk, it is possible. There is nothing else happening.
No.
Except you're getting from here to there.
And mindfulness causes me to realise that time is running out. We'll be back in a moment. Welcome back. You're watching Harmony and Diversity. We're speaking with David Schutz, Catholic Ecumenical Interfaith Commission. Now, we're on this pilgrimage, we're on this, and you've gone through the details. There's been quite a bit of preparation and planning for it. What about the future? What do you think will happen to this? Could you want it to grow and make it grow?
Luke, with the Aussie Camino, has put a lot of effort into making it a route that others can walk, and he has also assisted them in that walking. So he makes that a practice that he is very committed to. We feel more in the line that we are walking this for ourselves.
Yeah.
But we are recording where we walk. We've worked out a route. That route is available to anybody else who would like to follow after us. As an example, the last 5 days of our section after Easter this year was from Bombala in New South Wales down through the Toowoomba Valley, a beautiful part of God's earth, which it's got one road, it's very steep gravel track in on one side and one road out the other side. And there's several little communities who live in there. And it's you can walk on the roads and not see a vehicle for an hour or two. Right. But it's just somewhere you wouldn't go if you weren't walking through there or you didn't live there. I mention it simply because there's almost a direct line from Bombala through to Eden. It takes about 5 days to walk, and the Diocese of Canberra-Goulburn, the Vicar General there, is now currently organising for a group of walkers from their diocese to walk that route that we followed. And staying in places that we stayed and making connections with the people who helped us through that section as well. So I hope that by us showing that it's possible, it might inspire others who want to do either a part or all of it in the future. And we can assist them on that. But we don't own it. Neither will we be guiding them to do it.
Yes.
We won't be taking them along. But so I have no idea of the way the Santiago de Compostela started, but somebody had to be the first person to walk it.
That's right.
I know the sisters in Sydney do not receive a lot of walking pilgrims, certainly not from this distance. The small museum for Mary MacKillop at Eden, since Archbishop Prowse had declared that to be the pilgrimage site for the Diocese of Canberra-Goulburn, we were the first pilgrims to arrive there for that. And we were welcomed by the little museum committee in a very hospitable way. And I think that this is something that others might say, yes, we can do that as well. It's manageable, it's possible.
And the local communities, as you went through, you'd had interface with them. Was that mainly supportive?
Well, yes. We started off, at first, it wasn't a very, at the beginning, not a very significant connection, but we might have stayed with the local priest or a local family would have put us up. We got to Kawa in eastern Gippsland, and there the community had much more engagement with us, and we met and we had a rest day there, and we went to some of their local events and talked about what we were doing, and they told us about what they were doing. This last section, we'd needed a lot of help from locals, so the Bombala community, we were there for Divine Mercy Sunday this year. There wasn't any, the priest was away, and so they had a lay-led communion service, but I was very honoured to be asked to give the reflection after the gospel. So I think it's the first time I've ever preached in a Catholic church. And then walking through the Toowoomba Valley, we were there for Anzac Day, for their celebrations for Anzac Day. We found the local textiles group in a hall as we were going past and stopped and had tea and scones with them. We'd be invited in by passers-by. And then the way we were received in Eden was just wonderful. So I'm hoping that the next 2 legs going up the east coast to Sydney, we will be able to make really meaningful connections with the parishes there as well as we go.
As you talk about it, it seems to have a bit of an Australian flavour. Is that
well, it's a very Australian flavour. I'm sure, I haven't done the Camino yet, but I think the big difference is you don't get a cafe every 5 kilometres. But you do get to touch these little communities. We're trying to stay out of the main towns if we can. There was a place just a day's walk out of 10 kilometres out of Bombala, and I'm trying to remember the name of it, but it's a little historical town which had put up for some previous anniversary of the town little green and white painted plaques on every building of the town saying what this building was used for and who lived here and all the rest of it. And we had a sense that we were also engaging with the history of the country as we're going through.
You can almost hear the voice in a banal tone saying, "She'll be right, mate." She goes through.
There were times where you would, towards the end of the day, and the sun's setting, and you've still got 5 kilometres to go, where you ask yourself, "Are we going to get in there?" After we did a 36-kilometre day up the mountain side, going out of Orbost, and we got to the top, and it was dark when we arrived at the local pub. And it was full of timber workers who saw these guys straggle in, and they welcomed us in their own way. That's
fascinating. Well, I hope that really goes well into the future. perhaps we are coming to a break, but perhaps we might talk about the whole pilgrimage effect after the break.
Sure,
And because there's something about pilgrimages, isn't there?
There is.
As you say, with Luke's Aussie Camino,
which is growing and being very successful.
Yes. We'll go to a break. We'll be back in a minute. Welcome back. You're watching Harmony and Diversity, and we're speaking with David Schutz, Catholic Ecumenical Interfaith Commission. Pilgrimages. People have all sorts of pilgrimages, religious and otherwise. What's your impression of the essence of a pilgrimage?
Well, one person reacted to on my writing up of my story on my blog site by saying, "This isn't anything special. This is just going for a long walk."
Yeah.
I said, well, it is a long walk. That's true. But it's walking with a purpose, walking with a goal in mind. There are two parts of a pilgrimage, and I guess it's the same of any journey. There is the destination, and the destination is what retrospectively gives meaning to the entire journey.
Right.
At the same time, there's the journey itself, and every moment of that journey along the way, and being mindful of what's happening. I could tell you right now, if you had time to wait, I could give you the whole story of the walk, because everything's joined together in a continual experience. But then at the end of the first 2 weeks, so we'd been walking for 12 days, and when I returned home, I had to ask myself, well, what have I brought back from this? And there are a number of things I learned, such as if I was to live my life as if I was still on pilgrimage, it would be getting up in the morning and focusing just on this day.
Yeah.
And knowing I've got to get to here, and have it not looking too far ahead.
No.
But planning for this day. The other thing is then to be ready for anything that might happen during that day.
Yeah.
And to take it in your stride as you go. Make it a part of the journey, whether it's someone you meet or an accident that might happen along the way. It has to be taken in.
Right.
And it's not a disaster that stops you. It's not a diversion that takes you off the path. But it's something that becomes a part of you as you're walking along. And
So that really is, we mentioned mindfulness before. That's starting to come into the real meaning of mindfulness. I get the impression.
Well, I am not normally a mindful person. I am distracted by 1,000 things. My wife would say that it's impossible to hold a conversation with me because my mind's going off in all directions. But sometimes we do need to put ourselves in a situation where we're not being distracted, so that just the question of being. And so being in relationship with me, being in relationship with the earth. Also, whether it's on Luke's Aussie Camino, which usually you might have 15, 20 people in a group, or whether it's ours, which has the 3 of us walking together, it is a thing you're doing with somebody else. There are times when you walk apart, but the flow of life and the trail brings you together sometimes. I think the people who do the Camino in Spain have spoken about the experience of walking a path that hundreds of thousands of others have walked beforehand. And there's something communal in that as well. Yes, and I guess this is a little parable for our lives. We all live our own lives. We all die our own deaths, but we don't do it alone.
No. There seems to be that the concept, if you narrow the concept of pilgrimage down, and we go back to the interfaith, it's possible to see that as being a pilgrimage of each individual through the maze of the spiritual mountains which have been raised by the religions.
Yeah. It is interesting. Not every religious group has a notion of pilgrimage, but many of them do. For instance, the Jewish community has a very strong sense of returning to Jerusalem and making that pilgrimage to, there's a Hebrew word for it, I can't think of it right at the moment. There's also the Muslim Hajj that's to be made once in their life to Mecca, at least once in their life. Hindus have a very good sense of pilgrimage to sacred places or sacred or teachers. Maybe they might go to visit the place where a teacher lives. But it seems to come back to life, that it's somehow connected to life and to journeying there.
To journeying,
It is a question why... my daughter was telling me the other day that it's one of her thoughts that when she finishes school, before going on to uni, she might travel, she said. And a lot of young people want to travel.
Yeah.
But pilgrimage is not just travelling.
No.
It's going.
It's going. Yeah, that's right, yes.
You're intentionally going somewhere.
Yeah. It's the intention, isn't it? That
it is.
Destination, of whatever it happens to be.
Yeah.
Which sits there. I guess mountain climbing might be the same.
And you get there and you're on top of the mountain. Now, the interesting thing about mountain climbing, like if you've climbed Mount Everest, I was listening to someone talk about that the other day. You get to the top and you've got to come down again. And quite often that's where the fatalities happen.
Yes.
Is coming back
coming
down. People who went on the Camino to Spain in ancient times, when they got to Santiago, they had to come home again. They were only halfway there.
Yes.
We have the luxury of going somewhere and then getting on a plane or getting on a train and coming home much quicker. But that notion of going. And coming and returning. Yeah. There's the lovely image out of the Lord of the Rings of Frodo and his companions returning home. I think it's Sam Gamgee who says when he gets home, he says, "Well, I'm back." And I've often felt like that. I've often felt when I've got back from pilgrimage, well, I'm back.
Yeah, I'm back. Yeah, yes. So it really, life of course is a pilgrimage in a way, I guess, not in a way, it is. And you, with your ecumenical and interfaith commission type work, you're contributing a massive guideline, like putting the Hansel and Gretel,
with the
breadcrumbs on the ground to lead people.
You do hope that you're forging a trail that others... Okay, so doing this walk, mapping out a trail that others can follow.
That's right.
One thing I am very conscious of is when I'm working in the Catholic Church for ecumenical and interfaith relations, I hope that I am creating a trail that others can follow. And they can ask, what does this mean? How do I do this?
That's
I
right.
can say, well, this is the way I did it.
Yep.
You can follow that way if you wish.
Yep.
Or find your own way.
David, thank you very much. Yeah. And we'll hopefully speak with you again sometime.
Thank you very much, Norman.
You've been watching Harmony and Diversity. We'll be back next week. Thanks for watching.
Shanti Om.